Do you want to know what I find most interesting about Squid Game's pilot? It's how the protagonist Gi-hun at the beginning is shown to be nothing but a total loser. Like, it opens with his mother telling him that he's forgotten that today's his daughter's birthday, and then he immediately whines about how she needs to give him more money. And then when she says no, he steals her credit card, forgetting her birthday too as he tries to guess her PIN, and then he gambles it all away on the horse tracks. That is our introduction to this show's protagonist. Like, if you were to ask around if that was a good way to open your show, most people would tell you that you're an idiot. You can't open a story like that. That would make your protagonist unlikable, and no one will enjoy your story then. However, Squid Game is the most popular show Netflix has ever had, so clearly they had to be doing something right here. By all means, the guy does show some likeable qualities as the show goes on, like he turns out to be a nice enough guy, but how do we reconcile with how this show gave us such an unpleasant first impression of its protagonist? Well, I'll answer that mystery later in the video, but firstly, there's something vital that every pilot episode must do. It has to convince an unconvinced viewer that your show really is worth their time. Fundamentally, your pilot isn't just the beginning of your show, it's also its trailer. In the same way a movie trailer gets the viewer excited to go to the cinema, a TV pilot has to get the viewer excited to watch episode 2. In the recent Spider-Man trailer, when we see those mechanical arms come up and then we get,
"Hello, Peter."
The internet exploded, because this right here isn't just a fun reveal, it's the pitch for the movie, and it's a bloody good one. What if Tom Holland's Spider-Man has to face down the villains from Sam Raimi's trilogy? It's an inherently exciting pitch for a superhero film. When you boil it down, this right here isn't storytelling, it's pure marketing. And when you're writing the pilot to your show, you need to do exactly this. What is your Hello Peter moment? You've got to ask the question, where in my pilot will I pitch what the show will be about? And crucially, is that pitch exciting enough? The Walking Dead, for example, pretty much had its pitch be the opening scene. We see a gritty-looking apocalypse, then our protagonist faces down a zombie. He shoots it, and that's it. That's the entire pitch right there. It's telling you exactly what The Walking Dead is going to be about. This might seem like a pretty weak pitch for a show, but it genuinely wasn't, because back in 2010, when this pilot came out, which that makes me feel a bit old, to be honest, this was a fantastic pitch because the public's brief but enthusiastic obsession with zombies was just on the rise. If you were making a pilot in 2010, simply having the pitch for your story be, "It's a grim tale about the zombie apocalypse," would have been enough to sell millions of people on your show. But now, after being so oversaturated with zombie stories, what was once a strong pitch is now a fairly weak one. You can look at Invincible too. As the audience sees the first episode, they think, well, this is just another generic superhero story. But then the tables turn and the show gives us its real pitch when Omni-Man does, well, what he does. I won't show the details here because according to my analytics, children are watching and I'd prefer not to be demonetized. And of course, Squid Game's pitch moment is when we finally enter the first game, that bloke gets shot, and it immediately establishes an interesting premise. What if Hunger Games had a crossover with a game show? You know, what if Mr. Beast did a video, except everyone whose hand leaves the Lamborghini gets shot? It's an inherently exciting pitch for a show, and even better, we then spend the next 10 minutes exploring it as we see the first game play out, giving the audience an appetizer, delivering the goods on the pitch they just made, and they deliver on an already exciting pitch so well, it's a lot like lightning in a bottle as the viewer physically can't turn their eyes away. It creates the kind of pilot that has the potential to be catapulted into international popularity, the kind of pilot where when it's over, the viewer feels a really strong urge to watch episode 2. But back to the initial question of this video. How did Squid Game get away with having such an unlikable protagonist in its beginning? Well, I think the big point to make here is that likability is a total myth.
No way. Not this time. It's totally made up. Pure fiction. it's false.
Like, seriously, if you're creating a protagonist and you're asking, how can I make this person more likable, you're asking the wrong question. But what is the right question? How do you give your show's pilot a great protagonist? Well, it isn't actually likability that matters here. Instead, it's relatability. When you boil it down, every great protagonist, the kind where you just can't help but want them to succeed, the reason behind it all is that that character is relatable. From Gi-hun to Walter White to Mr. Incredible. But this begs a really interesting question, because how are these three characters relatable? Like, what is the quality they share that binds them together? I remember watching The Incredibles when I was about 10, and despite the fact I didn't work a boring office job at the time and wasn't going through a midlife crisis, I still cared about Bob's character. And that is mental, because how the hell is it possible that children can relate to a protagonist going through a midlife crisis? Or, I mean, look at Gi-hun from Squid Game. Like, his two biggest character flaws at the start are tremendous dishonesty and a crippling gambling addiction. Like, you might have none of those character traits yourself, but you probably felt compelled by Gi-hun's character. Where the hell is all of this relatability coming from? Well, I've been giving this one a good think because it's admittedly a pretty tricky question. And the other day, I think I realised what the key is here. It's something that all of you psychologists out there will be familiar with, and I've only just realised how crucial a role this plays when creating characters in fiction. It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What that is a pyramid that was proposed, unsurprisingly, by a guy called Abraham Maslow in 1943, and it lays out all of the things a human wants for in life. I've begun to realise that when you're crafting a character's motivation, this pyramid right here is perhaps the most useful tool you can have at your disposal. The way this works in real life is if you watching were to reach a point where every level of this pyramid is fulfilled, you should, in theory, want for nothing. You know, you'll look at the mirror from Harry Potter 1 and see nothing but yourself exactly as you are. It goes without saying that that's a bad thing for your protagonist to do because they must want something, otherwise where's the story? But admittedly, this does look pretty complex. How do we digest this pyramid into something we can understand and apply? Well, let's give a few examples to break it down. Let's look at Walter White from Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad kicks off showing Walter going about his everyday life, which, by the way, is something nearly every successful story begins with, as when you show protagonists' everyday life, it gives you a wonderful opportunity to not just give exposition on who they are, but importantly, to demonstrate the hole in their life. It's this hole in their life that must motivate the character and drive the story forwards. For Walter, he's got the first level of this pyramid covered. Basic physical needs, food and shelter, he's got all that, no problem. He has the next one up, security. There aren't any assassins out there gunning for him. He also has the next one up too, as he's got a wife and son who love him. But everywhere above this, he's lacking. He has no status nor respect, and he's constantly demeaned by everyone around him.
Hey, Mr. White. Think that star shine, huh?
Oh my god.
And to top it all off, Walter is not achieving his potential, and our investment in his character, the reason why Walter is so compelling to follow in the early episodes of Breaking Bad, is because the holes in his life stem from such universal, relatable problems from the hierarchy of needs. And crucially as well, as the pilot goes along, we see Walter get a taste of what it's like for the holes in his life to be satisfied. We see that when he goes from being powerless to beating up a bully for insulting his son, or how nobody respects him, not even his family. But upon breaking bad and making meth, he finally finds the admiration he's always wanted.
This is pure glass. You're a goddamn artist.
And back to The Incredibles, believe it or not, Walter White and Mr. Incredible are identical characters in this respect, because sure, Bob's having a midlife crisis, but that's not the core of why he's relatable, and it's not his boring office job either. Rather, it's how he feels like he isn't realising his potential, which again is a hole that stems from right at the top of the hierarchy of needs. Therefore, every human being alive can relate to him. If you want to come up with a relatable character motivation in a story, or screw it, if you just want to have a good protagonist, referring to Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a really, shockingly effective way of achieving both of those things. You can have it come from the top like Walter White and Mr. Incredible, or you can go all the way down to the bottom and have a character's motivation be them dying of thirst in a desert and they're hunting for a glass of water. Doing this will ensure they have the kind of motivation that everyone, everywhere will be able to relate to. to, from them being a 10-year-old kid all the way to living in a totally different country, not knowing your language and so needing to watch your show in a rather bad dub.
Do you know where your son happens to be now?
On business in the United States,
I'm afraid that Mr. Cho Sung-woo has a warrant out for his arrest.
huh?
If we were to break down Gi-hun from Squid Game, his motivation stems from these two areas in the pyramid: love and safety needs. He's in crippling debt that's so bad it's at the point now that the loan sharks are beating him up in the bathrooms. He has no security, and to top it all off, he's on the brink of losing his daughter as his ex is about to move with her to America. Two different holes in his life stemming from two levels on the pyramid, and what is the cause of both of them? Not having enough money. And so when the Squid Games start and we see that piggy bank descend from the ceiling, just like Walter White does when he starts dealing drugs, just like Mr. Incredible does when he sees that opportunity to relive his glory days, Gi-hun gets a glimpse of what it might be like for the holes in his life to be filled. And because the first half of the pilot did such a good job at establishing the relatable problems of Gi-hun's life, when the last half kicks off with him joining the Squid Games, the audience can't help but want him to succeed. The audience can't help but be compelled by his character, despite how he's been a pretty bad father, lies, steals, and in general does some very unlikable things. But by all means, having a likeable protagonist really can work effectively. I think of Marta Cabrera from Knives Out, right? The fact she's surrounded by some really just quite detestable people, it contrasts with how likeable she is, and that only makes us want her to succeed in the end more. However, saying to yourself, I must have a likeable protagonist, is a lot like saying, I'm only going to buy a house if it's already painted white. By all means, you'll probably find some good houses painted in that colour, but you're tremendously limiting yourself as a house buyer, you're limiting yourself as a storyteller, because before you've even begun, you've cordoned off so many other fantastic ways to craft your protagonist. If you do what Squid Games does with presenting what's lacking in their life, then begin a plot where they get a taste of what it's like to not have that issue anymore, that's enough. That's the key to introducing your protagonist, whether you're doing a pilot, a movie, or a novel. Squid Game's pilot, while not the best pilot of all time, did a phenomenal job at doing what any pilot must do. Not hooking the audience, that term's too vague. It's so vague it's downright useless. Instead, pitching what the show will be about, while simultaneously establishing a protagonist with a relatable enough motivation that anyone from any culture can get behind. And when you're writing your own stories, don't fall for the trap of keeping all of your thoughts in a messy document without any kind of organisation. I've made that mistake before, and trust me, it's a right pain. Let's look at the word count of my unorganised notes for a novel series I've been planning, and it's
Jesus Christ!
painful to look through, and downright impossible to reference when I need to find the specific notes I'm looking for. If you've been having these issues like me where your story notes are a total mess, then Campfire is perfect for you, the sponsor of today's video, because it's an organisation tool made specifically for writers. It's a great way to refine your garbled, unstructured story notes into neat, easy-to-reference documents where you can create detailed character bios, lay out your magic systems, organise the lore for your entire world, plan your character arcs, and organise more or less everything you might need to tell a great story. They've even got an inbuilt manuscript editor so you can keep all of your notes and write your stories in the same workspace. Like really, it's the ultimate package for you storytellers out there, and even better, you can use it right now for free. Yeah, seriously, you don't need to put in a credit card or anything. If you click my link in the description, you can start using Campfire and see if you like how it feels with no pressure. And then, if you want to unlock the full experience, you can use my discount code CloserLook22 to get 20% off the lifetime purchase of any of Campfire's many extra features. Really, Campfire is a fantastic place to organise all of your story plans and world building. Like, I am both dreading and greatly looking forward to translating all of my notes onto it. And if you just want to try it out and see if it's right for you, do click my link in the description and give it a go totally for free, but then use my code CloserLook22 to get 20% off when you permanently unlock some of its many features. Good luck with the writing. Anyway, thanks for watching, don't forget to hit that like button, and I'll see you guys next time on The Closer Look.